Hi and welcome to another Memories Made video. I'm designer Gallacher, and because Mother's Day is this weekend, I am going to do a Mother's Day layout. And I'm going to show you some stamping on vellum and some ways that you can incorporate textures such as linen or canvas. So I'm starting with a collection, and both are fairly new from my mind's eye. This particular pattern paper is from Kate & Company, and this is from Collectibles. And the reason why I chose two different sheets is because I had a unifying piece from the Kate & Company that pulled the pink as well as matched the yellow from the collection. These two papers right here are from the same collection. And to get started, I'm going to add a little bit of burgundy scallop border on the end, and I just use a border strip, so use whatever border punch that you have or use your die cut machine and cut them. And I wanted to pull in some of this darker pink, and so I pre-punched a strip to go on the bottom of this pink pattern paper. And this pink pattern paper is a subtle diagonal stripe, and that's a smaller scale than the larger yellow diagonal stripe. And then we'll go ahead and adhere the entire piece of pink pattern paper to the layout. When I am selecting background paper, I like to look for less busy papers, and typically that's on the B side. So this is the pattern paper that you most often see at your scrapbook store, and when I'm pulling sheets from the scrapbook store, I'll turn it over and see what the B side is, and most often the B side is smaller print and typically tone on tone or something a little less bold. This was the A side, this is the B side, and so that's how I choose my background papers. Now I want to do some stamping on vellum, and you can use any color that you want. You'll want to use an ink that dries quickly because vellum has, by nature, a slick surface. And I wanted to do some subtle stamping, so I'm going to use this doily stamp from Hero Arts, and then I'm going to use a fun stamp set from Hampton Arts, an Echo Park paper, and this is from their O Snap collection. And I'm going to use this smaller doily punch, and we're going to go ahead and punch on our layout. So when I'm stamping onto a thin piece, I usually use some kind of surface that has a little bit of a give to stamp into, and I'm just going to use this cutting pad, and I'm going to place the vellum on it. And then there are a lot of different white inks out there. There's white StazOn. This is a Hero Arts dye ink. And some of these ink pads tend to dry out a little quickly. So if you are finding that's happening, make sure you buy the re-inker that coordinates with the collection that you bought, with the ink color that you bought, so that you have plenty of ink for the future. And I'm going to stamp some large doilies. And again, I'm just going for something really subtle. If I wanted this white to stand out a little bit more, then I would use a embossing ink pad. I'd probably ink it up with Versamark ink pad and then sprinkle on some white embossing powder, and that would make it stand out just a little bit more. But I wanted it to be really, really subtle and just in the background here. Now, when you are stamping with acrylic stamps, you need a block, and this is a large block. You can go with a much smaller block. And then just like you do with your other stamps, going to go ahead and just ink it and stamp and press firmly, and then ink it again. You can repeat this step as many times as you need to get the effect that you want. I'm going to do one more. I try to do an odd number of shapes when I'm stamping because it looks a little bit more natural. So it's hard to detect on that white, but let me show you what it looks like on that blue. So you can see it kind of shows up. Now when you're adding vellum to your projects, you have to determine where the adhesive is going to go because clear items will show adhesive behind it. So I'm going to cover this side of the layout with some other elements. So I'm going to go ahead and add some adhesive there. And you can see how the dot runner shows up. And so when I stick my vellum on top of it, you can see that it shows through. So that's what I'm talking about when you're thinking about where your adhesive is going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to machine stitch down the side here to hold this side in place. You could cover it with a sticker, or you could do a pattern paper strip right here, a lot of options. I'm going to go ahead and machine stitch it and come back and show you what it looks like. So I went ahead and did some machine stitching, and I didn't try and make it straight. I wanted it to be a little bit messy, and then I can just cut off the excess from the back. And that allows me to add some pattern paper or vellum to my layout and not worry about the adhesive. So I have a couple of different pattern papers we're going to add to this layout. This darker teal was inspired by the dark teal found in the flowers and is from Simple Stories. This particular teal is from the other side of a Kate & Company pattern paper. So I just tried to pull papers that match that original floral pattern paper. And we'll go ahead and cut pennant shape from the bottom of this teal pattern paper and adhere it to the side of the layout. We're just going to layer some of these large pennant pieces. And you can cut these as deep as you want, meaning you can cut the triangle off the bottom to be really sharp points or maybe more narrow points. It's completely up to you. See, now we've already covered up that adhesive that we had showing before, and that was because we planned very carefully where it would go. When I am shopping for pattern paper, I usually start with a paper that I think is a good unifying paper and one that matches the theme or the event that I'm going to use, and then I go shopping for patterns that match, and whether they're from the same collection, which makes it nice and easy, or whether I just search by yellow paper or teal paper, I just like to mix it up. So this is some tape from My Mind's Eye, and I'm just going to add a little bit to this top layer, and I'll tuck the excess behind. Now, one way to add some texture to your layout is to use items that are made from unique materials. These are some canvas butterflies from Little Yellow Bicycle, and I'm going to adhere them to these pennants. And they have them in several different fabrics to choose from. And then I'm going to take some white buttons, which I've pre-tied with some white crochet twine, and we'll just adhere these in the center of those butterflies. You could also, if you have a manual die cut machine, do this exact same technique all on your own. You would simply need to use a fabric stiffener behind your fabric, and then you could cut linen, cotton, felt, just whatever you want. Just cut off some of these excess pieces of string. But you have the option of adding these beautiful textures to the layout however you want. Now, I wanted to bring in an additional texture, but I wanted to match this craft colored butterfly. So I went looking in my stash for embellishments that I have that would match. And I have these wood veneer pennant banners from Studio Calico. I had this chipboard piece from Little Yellow Bicycle. But I found a piece that was a little bit older that I decided that I wanted to use more. And that is also from My Mind's Eye. It's a little bit darker. But what you could do is you can take these Studio Calico pennants, these wood veneer, and you can take an ink pad and simply ink the top of them, and you get the exact same look as you have here, and then you could add a stamp. So if you don't have this exact embellishment, look for a way that you could alter either wood veneer, or you could even cut these from craft cardstock. So I'm going to bring this burgundy color up to the top of my layout. I try to balance it out so visually there isn't too much weight on the bottom. And this is just a scratch piece, so I didn't even worry about cutting both sides perfectly. And then there's a lot of yellow in this layout, and to bring a little bit more yellow into the layout, I'm going to go ahead and take some twine from American Crafts, and I'll be sure to link you to some other options for twine. And I'm just going to wrap it around this burgundy strip a couple of times and then tie it off. And this just brings in a little bit more texture and a little bit more color to the layout. And I like to have twines in several different colors and styles so that I can use them in different ways. So I'm using a solid colored twine and a crochet twine on this particular layout. And then we'll just go ahead and I think I'm going to tie it in a knot rather than a bow. So I'm going to place my title up here. All right, so what I wanted to talk about in this particular memory are how motherhood comes in numbers sometimes. And so I have some chipboard numbers, and these are from an October afternoon collection. And you could alter these with paint, with mist. You could leave them raw as they are right now. You can alter them however you want, and that gives them an entirely new look. I just placed them randomly on my layout when I was designing it so that I could see how it would look. And then I'll show you something fun that we're going to do with it in terms of the journaling. So to adhere chipboard, you can machine stitch them if they are thin enough, and you can add glue dots to them. And we'll just put them onto the stamped background. And the fun thing about that stamped background is we kind of created our own pattern paper. So stamping is a great way to alter paper. So whether you're doing it to cardstock, vellum, or even pattern paper, you can alter it as much as you'd like. So I'm just randomly placing this around. You could also place them in numerical order, or if you have an alphabet that has a significance to you, you could spell out a word. A lot of options here. And I'm going to leave this middle section blank, and you'll see why in just a second. So when it comes to being a mother, we have a lot of things that we do every day, and I wanted to remember just a few of them. And this is a unique way to approach your journaling. So whether you do a Mother's Day layout where you took photos with your children and you want to focus on your memories of the day with them, or whether you just find a general photo of yourself and do journaling that way, that's another option as well. And that's the approach I'm going to take. And I have this photo of my husband and my son, and I'm going to place this in the middle in the place of one of the numbers. So then as I was going through my stash, I came across a little jewelry tag. And you may have had these from several years ago. And you can get these at office supply stores if you still love them. And I thought this was really cute, but I wanted mine a little bit larger. And so I printed several off, or rather cut several with my Silhouette machine. And I wanted to do that because I'm going to show you a technique that I do. So I wanted to add tags that have printed journaling on them like this. So I typed up my journaling in my word processing program, and then I took the tag blank and simply centered it onto the journaling, and then I ran it back through my printer and printed it again. And then I peeled off the tags, and that's what gave me these tags. And we're going to go ahead and adhere the tags to the numbers, because each of the numbers that I'm using that's going to get a tag is significant and works and corresponds with the journaling. So we're going to take each of the tags and attach them to a number. So I have 5 members in my family, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that with some string. So just like the jewelry tag, you just attach it to the number by threading it around the shape, and you may have to peel it up. And then I'm just going to tie this into a knot to the actual number. So rather than just doing a boring old journaling block, I am using tags. And that's a little bit more interesting. You can also add a tag to one of the numbers by adding a glue dot and sticking it onto the project, and then using a chipboard button right in the center. And that's one way you can add. I'm going to do the same thing at the top. This one's a teal chipboard. These are from the Sweet Girl collection from Echo Park Paper. And then you can determine as much attachments or as many tags as you want based on the tags that you cut and the journaling that you want to use. I'm going to add another one here for one day at a time. And you can see that I thought about what each number meant to me. And so I looked at the numbers I had, and I thought of how does that correspond with what I do on a day-to-day basis as a mother, and that's how I determined what my numbers list was going to be. So you can type up the things that you do as a mother. You could even do this as a journaling block and make a list and use them however you'd like. I'm going to do one more tag, and rather than do journaling on this one, I'm going to use a sticker element. And this time I'm going to use a sticker from Doodlebug. And you can see I've mixed and matched several manufacturers just because the colors work together. I don't very often stick to just one collection. I like to use my stash, see what I have on hand and how well it will work together. So I'll tie this off here, cut off the excess. And then I have these Doodle Pop stickers from Doodlebug Designs, and we're going to use this little teal flower. And you'll notice that you can move your tag up wherever you want to hold it in place. Then I'm going to add a little tab. This is from Jelly Bean Designs, or Jelly Bean Soup rather, and we're going to add it to the side of our floral strip because it matches the colors. And then we're going to go ahead and add our title. And the title says Motherhood by the Numbers, and that brings in and coordinates with the journaling, so it gives the journaling a little bit more weight. I'm going to go ahead and glue that down and show you what that looks like. So there you have the title, Motherhood by the Numbers, and then you have the numbers with the journaling. And then to finish off the layout, I'm going to add a few of these epoxy dots from My Mind's Eye, and just in that fun yellow color. And I try to do them in a visual triangle so that you can see them on a couple of different places on the layout. So there you have a layout that focuses on motherhood. Be sure to approach the journaling different each time you do a layout. Try something new, like maybe either a numbers list or a different style of journaling. Then try incorporating things like stamping on vellum or different textures on your layout. Thank you for joining me for today's Memories Made video. Watch for a new video coming soon.